monsters! How are you doing this morning? Well, we're going to talk about 26 hours in VR chat, or rather 26 hours in VR, and how that affected me. It was interesting. It was a really interesting experiment. First of all, why did I do it? Well, as you all know, I took last week off, and we're in lockdown here in the UK, and I just needed to take a break. Normally when I take these kind of holidays, I go into the forest, I walk alone, or I bugger off somewhere and I do some thinking. And last week I did do a bunch of thinking and I was semi-productive, but it hit sort of late Wednesday, early Thursday, and I was like, I do not feel like I'm on holiday. I do not feel rested. I do not feel like I had a thing. How do I address this? And my solution was quite simply, what if I could trick my brain by being in VR for 24 hours? And I just idly proposed this to my wife on the sofa on Thursday, and then I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do it on Friday, starting at midnight, going through to Saturday midnight. And that was the plan. It was a question about whether or not I stream it. So the reason I did not stream it is because, well, two. One, it would be performance art, not holiday. It would have been a bunch more stress. And two, I don't feel right streaming VR chat. VR chat is my sort of escape, my personal escape, and streaming it doesn't feel right for me at the moment. If I did stream it, I'd stream a very bespoke version of it. You would not come along for the ride, so to speak, because it's very much my club night. It's very much my social escape, especially in lockdown. So that was the decision not to stream it. So what were the rules for the 24-hour that I sort of set for myself? Well, very simple. Stay in the headset for 24 hours. For the occasional bio break or thing that needed, I had to have my eyes closed the entire time, which led to some amusing situations. But let's get on and tell you all the story. So I log on. Now I hadn't slept beforehand or anything. It was a normal day. So I log on at midnight. And a few of my friends are all online, but I was like, well, I'm on for 24 hours. Let's start by just world hopping and going into the public worlds and maybe meeting some new people. It was its normal chaotic self until eventually I was in a world where it was a bit of a chill vibe. It was a rain world. It was a rather small room and everyone was sort of mirror vibing. So chill around there for a bit. Then some of my friends joined me, most notably, so I'm not really going to name most of my friends, but I don't think Pan will mind because he runs VR Chat News and he's fairly public. So yeah, we hung out for a bit and we just spoke a bit. And then while we were speaking, another friend turned up who's part of the... For this story, let's call them the Nanachi gang. For this story, let's call them the Nanachi gang. Showed up, and I hadn't seen them in a while, and I really enjoyed hanging out with them, and I ran over and was like, yay! And so even though we were in public, it ended up being me and these two friends chilling in front of the mirror with some other randoms. And so then we get Question Guy. Question Guy asks us all kinds of questions. He's very drunk, definitely straight, and definitely not furry. It's very amusing. I have two answers to the question, are you a furry? If someone who's not a furry asks, I say yes, of course, because people have some really toxic and shitty behaviors around furries. But if furries ask, I say, no, not really, I'm not in the community or anything, though I do like animation and such. Those are like my two answers for that question. Because some people have really shitty opinions about furries and it kind of pisses me off. So I Fur ally or fur adjacent is probably the correct term for me. I hate how they get treated. It's really shitty. Anyway, he's definitely straight. Definitely not a furry, but definitely drunk. I mean, sorry, he says he's definitely straight, even though he at one point shoved his head in my friend's crotch, and he was like, "Oh, don't worry, I do that all the time to my guy friends. We're all straight. It's just a joke." And it's just like, oh, it was funny. It was funny. It was really, really funny. He was obsessed with Yosemite Park for some reason. He was. It was very much the kind of interaction you have in VR chat where, yeah. So my 24 hours got off to a good start with that. But yeah, then we world hopped a bit and met up with more members of what we will call the Naichi gang, and specifically, which I call them for the purposes of the story, we met up with our brave and glorious leader and his second. Anyway, and shall we say my sensei? Yeah, there we go. My friend who joined us earlier, my sensei. And so yeah, hang around for a bit, and we decide to watch a movie in VR. So we chilled and watched a movie in VR for a bit. And then I was like, well, it's quite late at this point. Now at this point it feels like a normal night in VR chat. It doesn't feel like anything special, but I'm committed to this this marathon. It's like, well, do you guys want to go? I'm gonna go chill in a private world, and I'm gonna go to sleep in VR because they all know that I'm doing this challenge, and so this is the first sort of VR weirdness I need to speak about. It is, I wouldn't say common, but it's not uncommon for people to fall asleep in VR, which when you first hear that, you're like, what the fuck? So for some perspective, I'm in a Valve Index. I have full body tracking, and I've got a beanbag. So there's your perspective. I also have very well developed phantom sense. Now, for those of you who don't know what phantom sense or phantom touch is, basically your brain can be tricked into feeling touch even though there are no haptics. So I don't get it in most other headsets. I definitely get it in the Index with full body tracking. I mean, I get it without full body tracking to some extent, which is one of the reasons why I got full body tracking, because I would sit down in VR chat and my feet wouldn't be where my feet should be, and it would really bug me, specifically because I often sit funny and I'll rub my leg as I sit, which is a thing I do, and to see my hand sort of touching thin air and not feeling anything really bugged me. It was just, it really bugged me, more than it should have, probably, but hey. So they didn't do it to me, but the friend they did it to very much does have phantom sense, which feels like a big, it's not nice. It's not nice. So one of the most unpleasant experiences that I have, and I'm pretty good at managing it by closing my eyes when it happens and stuff, is when people intersect you, like intersect geometry or walk through you. It's rather upsetting. And this is true for a lot of people, because that's probably if you had a phantom sense scale from sort of a 0 to 10, people with like a 1 or a 2 on the scale and above generally are bugged by intersection or people putting stuff in their face. It's a very common sensation in VR, and the lowest sort of version of phantom touch. So by default, VR chat has an option of like a personal safety bubble, so stuff comes relatively close to you from other players. It's clipped, so you don't get stuff sort of thrown in your eyes and stuff. But if you hang out in VR chat a bunch, you turn that off, because if you hug someone or if you're just high-fiving them or something like that, it gets disrupted by the personal safety bubble. So we turn that off. But yes, to answer your question, it is extremely awkward if someone crotch dives you and you have phantom sense. It's just not cool. And you know, there is an ERP community. Not gonna lie, it's there. I have met it. I have spoke to it because I am fascinated by how deep that rabbit hole goes. But I'm married. Okay. That's all I'm gonna say on that topic. I'm married. So anyway, sleeping is a thing. So we go into this private world, very ASMR. It's got rain. It's a nice little attic world with a bed and stuff. Very, very chill. And I've gotten quite good at sort of arranging my beanbag. So when I lie on, diplomatic outreach with the RP community. When I lie on the bed, like I mostly sort of match up and stuff because my beanbag is really useful for that. And yeah, basically my 3 friends that I mentioned came to put me to bed, and they loved the idea of this because this would be the first time that I would actually be intentionally sleeping in VR rather than falling asleep during a movie or falling asleep briefly, like, you know, in front of the mirror or something. Science. So yes, I almost instantly fall asleep because Sensei is the best with cuddles, absolutely the best. And so I fall asleep. And this is 3 in the morning my time, 4 in the morning my time, I forget, round about there. 4 in the morning, I think. So I'd been online for about 4 hours, which is my regular sort of time. Now, this was also when my pucks were starting to lose some charge and stuff, but I really needed full body for the falling asleep in VR experience because otherwise my feet would be all over the place and it would be a mess. So I went to sleep in full body tracking. I did take off my index controllers. So for those of you who don't know, one sec. So for those of you who don't know, Valve Index knuckle controllers, they're very, very comfortable. You forget that you're wearing them, but obviously for some things you notice. So clapping, you can't clap, and any time when you rest like this, obviously this bit here gets in the way a bit. So I did take those off before I fell asleep because I would have noticed that. The trackers though, these little tracking pucks, I've got them on this track strap. You don't notice those at all. Those are totally fine. One on each foot and then one on the hip. So that's an arrangement for that. I do have an extended battery for the hip tracker. I have not been able to purchase an extended battery for the feet tracker because they're out of stock everywhere at the moment because they have a camera mount and stuff. But I do have these magnetic clip-on charge cables. So that works. That's a solution. But anyway, we are finally now going down the rabbit hole and falling asleep in VR. And as I say, I fall asleep almost instantly. My wife has a photo I'd love to share if it wasn't totally not safe for work. But basically, she came in while I was still asleep at about, must have been 6 in the morning. Or so, maybe 7, and she took a photo of me asleep in VR, and it's definitely one for the photo album, and it's definitely a memory, but it looks so weird, because I've got these tracking straps on, I've got the sort of indexes, and I'm sort of snuggled in the beanbag with this headset on. But anyway, wake up in VR, and I'm like, wake up in this private world all alone because obviously they've moved on and it was an invite plus world, so if no one's there they can't invite anyone, so of course I'm alone. And I'm like, and I felt really different. Waking up in VR is an experience. It's really an experience because obviously your brain, if you've ever gone like on a night out and you wake up some random place or whatever, or you're traveling and you wake up, your brain does this thing where you're like, where am I? What happened? And your cues on waking up are so much your cues that your brain uses to set itself. And so the VR cues were strong. And so I sort of stretched. And I'm like, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to bug any of my friends, most of which are US time based. So I will nip into a world and watch some stuff while I'm, chilling out. To answer your question, some people say you do need one. I don't know why my hair's doing this. Some people say you do need additional tracking boxes. I find the standard 2 to work. I'm pretty good with my lighthouse tracking, so I don't need a third. But yeah, it was very interesting. So anyway, I'm chilling out, and the friends I talked to about, the Nunachi gang, show up in the place I'm watching some stuff, and they're like, "Hey, Kim, how you doing?" Da, 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 da. And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm good, it's fine." But I still don't feel like it's the morning, and it was really weird. So I was like, hey, is there a place we can go? Is there a VR chat? Because, VR chat has so many worlds. Is there a VR chat world we can go to have breakfast or to watch the sunrise? And we scroll through the worlds, and we can't find like a breakfast world or whatever. But what we found this lovely world on the ocean with sort of a patio deck, sort of Eastern Zen garden kind of vibe, that had a 24-hour cycle that you could configure, day-night cycle. So we went to that world and we set it to sunrise, and we set the time advancement to real time. And yeah, we did yoga on the roof. Now, doing yoga or any exercise in VR chat, if you have full body tracking, is just like doing exercise. So we went to the roof, we stretched, and did poses. Got amused when our tracking slightly broke sometimes. Yeah, it was good. Did I turn down the brightness of the screen? The private world was dark while I was sleeping. I will say now ahead of time that I think at around hour 20, I turned down the brightness of the index screen at the system level by a bit. And that was around hour 20 when I was getting some eye strain. But at this stage, no, I was just using a dark world. A lot of the worlds have sleep modes. So yeah, that was the method I used. So yeah, we're in this world with the sunrise, and this immediately wakes me up. My brain is like, oh, there's a sunrise. I'm doing yoga in the morning. This feels no, and we're just chilling, and it's absolutely the best. It really is. But here comes the first foobar of my 26-hour marathon. One of my friends starts throwing stuff off the roof into the ocean because, as you do, right? The world has a really nice view and there's some random bits on the thing. And so they throw this beanbag off the edge of the ocean, and I'm like, wow, that was really cool. Let me try. And come on, you've been on a roof and thrown stuff off the roof. That's very much a thing you do, especially after a night out drinking. Come on, that's a thing you do. So I grab and I toss and I don't get anywhere. And I'm like, okay, let me grab the beanbag. And I'm like, oh no, I'm going to take a really hard swing. My friend says to me, watch out for the wall. In my brain, I'm like, what? There's no wall. We're on the roof. Take sort of a 2-step throw as hard as I can. And I pound my wall so hard that I didn't break the wall, thankfully, because it is plasterboard. I did not break the wall, but my index covered in plaster scratches. And my wife runs in and she's like, okay, are you fine? And I'm like, I'm fine, love. I'm still in VR. I haven't taken VR off. And I'm laughing my head off. And we're just like, wait, you meant the wall in real life? And I'm like, what is real life? It was proof to me the experiment was working. It was 100. If waking up and feeling that morning sensation and exercising on the roof didn't prove it to me, completely forgetting about the fact that there are walls, even when someone in game is reminding me to look out for them, was 100% the proof that my brain was being tricked. Now, I'm not saying I couldn't distinguish reality from fiction, but basically my lizard brain had been completely fooled. My immediate thought response had been completely fooled. And that was great. That was, wow, okay, the experiment is working. So what did we do after that? After that, we went to my friends. For them, it was, super late, and they were having some trouble staying up because, they were US time. So for them, this was, whatever time it is for you in the US now. So like 6 in the morning or something, 8 in the morning. So they jumped in, and we went on to some Dance Revolution style worlds, some Beat Saber style worlds, where we jammed out to music and we did like choreographed dance, and we had like we had Beat Saber style games and dance games that we played. So as I said earlier, the rules for the marathon was, if I ever had to take off the headset for bio breaks, I would close my eyes. Also, I had all the lights turned off in here, so I couldn't do the nose bridge down the peak trick. So I couldn't sort of see what I was doing by doing that, which is often how I actually do stuff when I'm in VR. But I quite often just lift up my helmet just to give myself a bit of a break. One of the concerns and one of the reasons I wouldn't do this frequently is eye strain, because, well, A, bright light in your face constantly is not great, but B, you have a fixed focal distance in the headset, and that's actually the biggest risk of TV and monitors and stuff, is you really should sort of look into the distance occasionally and just change your focal distance so your eye muscles don't atrophy. So that's one reason I would not do this frequently. But yeah, so, I went to the bathroom entirely blindfolded, basically. Oh, I love it when people answer that question. Gabe, I go by she, but really I find it so amusing that people ask that question, because it's like, well, what the fuck? Who cares if you have to ask, for fuck's sakes? It is amusing. But anyway, usually, honestly, people when they come in, they're just struggling with that. But like, I give a shit. It is amusing because the amount of friends in VR chat who've gone, "Are you trans? Are you a guy?" And I'm like, "Nah, I'm just South African." It's fine. Don't worry about it. So anyway, what are we doing? Throwing stuff, bio breaks. Okay, yeah, cool. So anyway, doing all of that. Oh, I mean, I would say VR chat skews mostly male, and the amount of trans people, femboys, the amount of just cross avatar play that goes in VR chat, like, oh god, just make no assumptions. Make zero assumptions. But anyway, moving on. Slammed into the wall, dancing around like a mad person in VR. We world hop for a bit, and we decide to... Oh, yes, we did have an upsetting incident earlier in the evening with a friend of a friend showing up in a world and being a dick, but that was before I went to bed. But that was... for that reason, we wanted to sanity check a friend later in the day. So we did sanity check a friend later in the day. But yeah, we world hopped, we explored. Oh, then we decided to go climbing. We decided to go climb a mountain. So I don't know if you've seen, but in VR chat there is these climbing worlds where you scale up a mountain, and you basically it works like a lot of VR climbing games where it's like hold, and you sort of transfer and you pull yourself through, and you'd be surprised at how tiring that is to keep your arms up like that and to climb through, and especially because you're gripping like an absolute mad person, where you're gripping like this, and then you're pulling the trigger and you're going through. And if you let go of the grip at any time, you basically have to reach over your back and reacquire the climbing grip, and that means the whole time you're climbing, you're gripping like hell, and your hands get sweaty, and you get a workout. You do get a workout. If you look on YouTube or on Twitch, there's tons of people doing VR climbing, especially in VR chat. So yeah, we're climbing this mountain, but at the start of this mountain, now, for those of you who don't know, in VR chat there is a range of avatars from people who come up to ankle height to giant mechs, the height of the sky. So there's a lot of range of avatar size. And one of the lovely things about VR chat is it doesn't try and force these restrictions. There are safety measures in place for people to control avatar performance and blah blah blah. So players have control, but there's no enforcement of this. So at the start of the climbing mountain, there is you need to be this height to ride this ride kind of sign, basically saying, look, if your avatar isn't about this height, the mountain's either going to be too easy if you're too tall, or if you're too short, you're just not going to be able to do it. And the Nanachi gang, which we're all in these avatars, look at each other and we're like, nah, we're going to climb this. Nanachis are going to conquer the mountain. I should probably take a moment to explain what are Nanachis. I did not realize this when I first entered into VR chat, because I randomly selected an avatar that I thought, that's kind of nice. It's not overly sexual. It's not an anime girl or some bullshit, so I won't get hassled as much. But it's vaguely furry. It's based on, the character looks nothing like Nanachi from Made in the Abyss, but it's based on Nanachi Made in the Abyss. There is a genre of avatar which, because they have tube arms and tube legs and are anthropomorphic, it means that it's a base model that can be modeled and changed a lot by people without a lot of art skill. So it's become a sort of subgenre of avatar, and the culture around Nanachis tends to be one of chill and cuddles. So it's developed a subculture. So anyway, Nanachi gang rise up. We decide to climb this mountain. It's murder, because we're just too short. We're reaching, and we're hacking it. So we're like, when I say hacking, we're not actually like breaking the rules or whatever, but we're like gripping the very edge of the grip and then reaching over. It's like absolute stretching our limit. And we get to the first checkpoint or the second checkpoint, I forget which, but we make real progress. And we're like, this has taken us like 2 hours, and we're like, oh man, exhausted. I don't know if this can be done with the Nanachi, because there's like one part where we had to reach over a cavern, and like there was a significant gap, and we can't make it. And so I'm like, well, I think I have an avatar that's not too terrible, that's average human height. I'll use that. But one of my, shall we say, the leader of our Nanachi gang is like, fuck it, I have a buff Nanachi, and shows up with a Nanachi. Then bear in mind, this cute, adorable anime character goes full JoJo, basically, with the six-pack and everything. It's a disturbing sight. It's a very disturbing sight. And so we go into some taller avatars and we're climbing, and immediately it's easy mode. Immediately it's like, it's easy mode. It feels like what we've been doing has been the hardest thing. But then we get to, I think it's the second or third checkpoint, I forget. And there's a bit where even with a normal sized avatar, you've got to take a bit of a jump. But every time we have tried to sort of push ourselves off ledges or whatever as Nanachi to take a jump, it hasn't worked. And we've been very frustrated. But one of my friends says, oh no, we found out the trick. What you meant to do is you meant to sort of reach over, and then you meant to push forward on the analog stick and let go, and that'll sort of hover jump you over. I'm like, oh, do it, land on the checkpoint, make the point. And I'm like, now that I have this newfound skill, I will continue to climb the mountain as me. And I get into my favorite avatar with the short one, and it's like, yes! And we continue to climb as Nanachi's, conquering the mountain. At this point, one of my friends is rather frustrated, and they're in like they literally call down like this mech, and they're in like this full giant Gundam mech climbing the mountain because they just can't be asked. But they're still struggling because obviously if your avatar's too big, then trying to get the grip holds is a problem. And yeah, anyway. But it's funny because we're climbing this mountain as Nanachi's, and there's this giant Gundam mech, and it's like, oh, it's peak VR chat. And so yeah, we eventually gave up because we had spent quite a bit of time and were quite exhausted, and the mountain is not meant to be climbed by Nanachi's. But we made significantly more progress. We got to the next checkpoint, but I mean, we were using the jump hack in places you were not meant to use the jump. We were like gripping the very edges of things, and yeah, it was hard moding. It was proper hard moding the climbing map that we were doing, which is Alpine V13. If people are interested, it's probably one of the most popular climbing maps. Anyway, so yeah, we do all of that. We world hopped for a while. We saw some other stuff. That was it. One of the movies we watched was Your Name. And I don't know if you've seen Your Name. It's been on my to-watch list for ever and ever, but I just haven't got around to it. And we watched that at VR Chat. And that was... Well, okay, so one of the reasons why we're doing these movie watches in VR Chat is because whenever we do a movie watch, I sort of set up my position, and and I plug in my controllers to charge with cables and stuff, so my pucks and everything can charge up. So that was what we were doing. We were charging up controllers and stuff while I watched movies. And Your Name just hit me so hard. I don't know if it's because I was with friends. I don't know if it's because I was just tired. But tears. Absolute tears at the ending of that movie. Won't say anything further than that, but fantastic movie if you get a chance to see it. Everyone's told you it's a fantastic movie. It's not news. It's old news, but fantastic movie. Yeah, so at this point, I think I'd been in VR for 16 hours. And now friends are starting to log on, friends are starting to show up, and I'm bouncing between worlds with friends, and bless them, my Nanachi support gang is with me, and two friends in particular, US friends, have basically... They've been on for 5 hours less than me, but they've been on for an insane amount of time, and they've been awake for even longer, and they're pounding energy drinks, and they're trying to stay awake as best as possible. Now, fortunately for me, I have a wife, and she is able to bring me some food in VR chat. Someone did ask earlier how I ate some food. The only meal of any substance I had, because I did have some small bites which I could pop in my mouth. The only meal of substance I had was a tuna pasta salad, and eating tuna pasta on the well, here we go. Hold on, let me pop this over here, and I will just go into there. there's me eating tuna pasta salad on the sofa of one of the worlds. And I know it looks really strange because it is strange. But yeah, if someone asked how I ate, that was how I ate. And it was a peculiar experience to eat in VR, because it was just like very strange, very strange. So yeah, the friends arrived, hanging out, chilling out. I got one thing we tried to master is yeah, that avatar was rock climbing. One thing we tried to master is one of my friends, who I'd called Sensei earlier, has this walk. So normally in VR chat, you push forward on one of the sticks and you walk forward, right? That's just how you walk forward. But obviously, the index is room scale. So if you're walking in your play space, and mine's about 2 meters by 3 meters, then if you're walking within that space, you can just walk as you would normally walk. And some people have a larger play space. This friend has a larger play space. I think they said it was 4 by 5 meters, maybe 4 by 6. But what they do is they never ever use the forward stick to walk. They walk in a circle and they turn their avatar. So when they need to walk in a straight line, in reality they're walking in a circle, but we see them walking in a straight line. And let me tell you, no matter how good walk cycles get, you can tell they're walking in real life. They're significantly slower than us because they're walking speed, right? But they've got a bit of a saunter, and yeah, it's awesome. And they've like nailed their play space movers and stuff. So like when they hop on a couch, they like hop on a couch because they've got like, they know where their bed is in their space, and they're really good at sort of planning out how to get onto the bed at the right time and stuff. So they're like, they just look 100% like they're in the world. It's amazing. So anyway, at this point I was trying to master the VR walk, and I was like doing bits around my play space trying to get, and basically I had so silly. I had a line in VR chat, and I was just like, walk straight on the line. I'm totally not drunk, officer. Walk straight on the line. And yeah, that's trying to do that. Trying to do the turny, and it's surprisingly harder than it sounds because there's a bit of a dead zone on the turn, and so you don't want to turn too sharp, but you need to turn sharp enough if your play space is small, and my play space is a bit too small to do it. I was speaking to 2 other people who do the VR walk, and one of them does it in a play space about my size, but they're like, it is the absolute smallest size you can do the VR walk in. But I'm working on that skill, and I hope to develop that skill. I think I can nail the VR walk. The VR walk, by the way, is actually something that large-scale VR, like room space VR, actually uses. It's a technique called redirected walking. But when game developers use it, it's not controlled by the player. What happens is we subtly shift the world, and your brain doesn't realize we're making you walk slightly in a circle. You think you're walking forward, but it's this redirected turning is how we make play spaces feel larger than they actually are. It's a VR trick that we've used for quite some time. One of my friends has a very cool game in VR chat, a spy espionage game called Unseen Diplomacy, that you do need a room scale VR to do, but at no point in that game do you use like controller locomotion. You 100% move around in that game, and it's the game procedurally figures out how to like turn you around and stuff to get you to advance through vents and things like that, and you crawl on your hands and knees, and it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. So as game developers, we've been using that trick, but it's interesting to see VR players actually adopt the trick for their role-playing in social environments. I never in a million years would have thought that would occur, but it has occurred. So yeah, that's interesting. With a bit of thought, you could probably build it into a VR chat mod or into the VR chat client. You could probably build some kind of redirected walking hackery, but to be honest, you need the player's assistance with that level of hackery. Yeah, so learning the VR walk, hanging out with friends, and now we're in the last 4-hour stretch. So now it's time to start drinking again. I've still got the remains of my drink from last night. Last night being Sunday, the day after. But hair of the dog and all that. And you would never drink out of a glass in VR chat, by the way, because the lasers, if they hit glass, refract and break your tracking in all kinds of ways. So you never drink out of glass bottles or glass cups in VR chat. It's a rule. I mean, you can, but it messes with your tracking. So yeah, normal things in VR chat then. We were hanging around, listening to music concerts, dancing, chatting, getting drunk. Hit the 24-hour mark, and my wife came into the room, took it off. It's like, yeah, I did the 24 hours. Could not have done it without my Nanachi gang. They were super awesome, super supportive. And after sort of hugging my wife and opening my eyes and being like, oh yeah, we're in the flat. And it was disorientating. It was 100% disorientating. I did decide to go back in for a few hours because my friends had almost been in for the full 24 because they had been supporting me for so long. And then I was like, I'm just going to go in and let them get through to the 24. At this point, VR chat servers are buzzing because it's prime time in the US on a Saturday night. There's normally an event I go to at Saturday midnight that I thought I might end my session with, but my Nanachi gang was so solid I didn't want to leave them. And yeah, that was the end. And then I spent another 2 hours in VR chat, and then I came out and went to bed in the real world. And the experiment was 100% successful. I felt like I went on a holiday. My brain was tricked, and honestly, not going to use a word like life-changing because it wasn't life-changing, but it was one of the most significant experiences I have in my catalog of experiences. And I've done some crazy shit, but a full day in VR chat has taught me a bunch of things. I'll go through them in a sec. The omnidirectional treadmill is called OmniTrack, I think, or OmniWalk. I forget. There is a few different things. There's a few different brands. Most of them revolve around sort of slide walking and such. VR chat people tend not to use them because they compromise full body and doing things like sitting down, lying down, all that kind of stuff, dancing. It's not really made for that. Most VR locomotion solutions are quite backwards when you think about it. They're mostly about your feet sliding. And so obviously I've been addicted to VR chat for a while now, and it's a steady part of my routine, and it's really helping me through lockdown. But there's some things that I've learned in VR chat that I never would have. And I've been working in the VR social space for a while. I did a lot of research. I saw early VR chat and what VR chat is now. It's like seeing Minecraft alpha and then seeing Minecraft today. But when I say that, you've got to remember what Minecraft was like before multiplayer was a thing. What Minecraft was like before adventure mode was a thing. Before, people are like, yeah, Minecraft's evolved over the years. But Minecraft, when it started until what I'd probably call the Secret Friday update, totally different games. By the time Minecraft was in mid to early beta, to today, there hasn't been a huge drastic shift in what Minecraft is. It's improved a lot, it's changed a lot, but there hasn't been a drastic shift. Whereas in those early days, there was a huge shift. And that's what's felt like what's happened with VR chat. VR chat has matured to the point where I can see the final product. There are definitely evolutions for it to still to happen, but it has gone through its transformation, and it is very much the most solid contender in the entire VR space for a VR metaverse. Doesn't mean it can't get dethroned, but I think VR chat, I'm cheering it on full blow. I think it's fascinating, the areas of culture it's driven up. We've spoken about Phantom Sense. I've spoken about sleeping in VR. Two things. If you had spoke to me 5 years ago, like, I was aware of phantom limbs, and I was aware of ghost sensations that some VR players experienced. We mostly worked around them, as in we saw them as bugs in VR development, and we were like, how do we solve this comfort problem? We saw it as a comfort problem. To see that full 180 and to see players embrace it and develop it and even go through hypnosis and other techniques to train it is like, okay, this is not something we expected to see. And, I was at all conferences and people speaking about this and didn't expect to see it. The VR sleep thing did start trending a few years ago with trance and meditation stuff in VR. So it's not a total shocker, but the way it's developed in VR chat is extremely interesting. No one was surprised by ERP happening in VR chat. We all expected it to. It's rather mundane. Things like the VR walk that I described, never would have expected. Waking up in VR, total game changer. It makes me want to do that particular thing more, taking naps in VR and waking up in VR. I think that is a hack and a shortcut to immersion. That superpower, absolute superpower. Yeah, we knew climbing games were good in VR, but I'm amazed at the range of activities one can do in VR chat, and at no point did I really feel bored in VR. That's interesting. The other thing I would say is, normally in VR you get a time dilation effect where time seems to move faster. That wears off. I don't know if it's because I was doing a marathon and I was very aware of the time, but I would say the first 4 hours flew. After I'd woken up in VR, felt like time was moving at the same time. Now, obviously, when you have fun and when you're like, so there were times when we were just playing around and stuff, with time did feel like it was flying. But I think that's not an effect of VR. I think that's an effect of just having fun. You know how when you're hanging out with your friends and you're having fun, time seems to accelerate. Yeah. Now, the purpose of the experiment was to institute a state change in my environment large enough that my brain registered it as a unique event. So, when they say change is as good as a holiday, your brain is hyper-optimized to say, oh, today was like yesterday, except for these bits. So it doesn't have to remember all of this junk. And we try to lock onto significant facts and forget stuff that's not significant. So it's no different. You don't care whether you had toast or cereal in the morning, unless you're a big foodie, and then you care. But your brain generally kind of forgets those details. But you do care if you hurt yourself or if something your brain deems significant happened to you. And when you travel and when you go on holiday, that is a state change that sort of forces your brain to stop sort of copying days across. And that's really healthy for you, and it does a lot of useful things to how you sort of frame time. And so that's why they say change is as good as a holiday. That's why people do seasonal redecoration. That's why we need things in the calendar to mark the calendar. You don't want this year's Christmas to be the same as last year's Christmas, because then the Christmases blur into each other. It's also one of the reasons why the world feels so magical as a child, because you don't have enough pattern matching going on, so there's constantly new experiences. But of course, as an adult, you can seek these out. And I actively do seek these out to keep my neural plasticity, to keep my brain active, to make it look and feel like time is being marked rather than time is smearing past me without anything happening. And this experience in VR chat was definitely time marked. It was memory forming. My friendship with the two people I mentioned from the Nanachi gang grew significantly. It was really good for those friendships. And yeah, it was refreshing in a way that I needed that holiday to be refreshing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of 26 hours in VR chat. Just keeping an eye on the time, making sure everything went forward. We have about 10 minutes for questions before I have to log out and I have to do the check into work after a week being off work and check my emails and everything. So obviously the next round is 48 hours. Okay. Yes, especially in 2020, I think VR chat has a very important and special place that could be used for this kind of thing. I think there is strong applications for it. Also, having been in hospital in the past before and having periods of self-isolation before, I think VR has an important place to play in those situations. Joking about the next round being 48 hours. So, obviously, one of the harshest restrictions I placed on myself was closing the eyes. Going to the bathroom wasn't a huge deal. Eye strain became an issue, but the other issue was getting food. It would have been very difficult to get food for myself and cook with those rules in place. I'd be curious if I remove those rules, how much of the sensation goes away, because frequent breaks remind you about reality more. I am convinced, okay, first of all, VR comfort is already comfortable enough. It will get better. I'm on record saying I don't think wireless VR is going to be the only form of VR. I think just physics means that wired VR is wired VR. I do think wired VR is going to be I do think we're going to be seeing headsets which are more dual mode, where they support wireless and they support wired, a la the Quest model. But I think one of the things, magnetic breakaway cables, really useful. Also, I don't think the thickness of the cable has to be as thick as it currently is. Obviously, as we get power requirements down, we can thin the cable. There's a safety element there that we can definitely address, because being able to unplug the cable and plug the cable in easily makes a difference. Full body tracking is still expensive and awkward. I mean, not awkward to use, it's a dream to use, but it is, you have to have a rather expensive VR setup to start off with, and then your track is going to cost you like $300 on top of your VR setup, because it's going to be like $100 for each tracker. So that's a significant cost investment. Pays off though, oh my word. Though, again, with I should caveat, this is with social VR. I do not use full body tracking for anything other than VR chat. For video games and things like that, don't need it. Yeah, it is interesting to me how, and I think that's one of the reasons I've been dismissive of full body, is it's very rare that you're playing a video game where you feel like you need full body. It would probably enhance some games. But yeah, I haven't felt the burning need for it in most VR games. VR Locomotion, you've heard my opinions on that. I think VR Locomotion, it makes sense why people want to explore the problem. I think it's an exaggerated problem. I think people are mostly okay with the joystick. And I think when you're not okay with the joystick, what you really want is the VR turning thing I described earlier. Yeah, it's an interesting problem. I do think there's going to be some extent where home decorating does somewhat adjust for it as a... Everyone who's serious about VR ends up getting space for VR. Everyone was always like, oh, you need more space for VR. Funny story, VR adoption is highest in Asia and Europe, where we have less space, and people make space for VR. Headsets sell best in Asia, second best in Europe, and then America is a third. I wouldn't say a distant third, but America is a third place. I moved my office into a bigger room only for VR. Now my smallest room is my bedroom. See, this is what people do. This is what people do, and I think we'll see more of that. The resolution of the index is good enough to be productive in VR. So for instance, I have the ability, so in VR I have the ability to bring up overlay screens on my wrist and bring those up, and I can generally read them. I need to get a better graphics card because I'm still rocking a 980 in my home PC. I just haven't felt the need to upgrade for so long. So I will be getting like a 3000 series GPU or one of maybe the new AMDs in the near future. It's just they're out of stock everywhere. So I'm probably just going to wait till Christmas has passed, and then I'm probably going to just try grab a 380 or a 390, and that'll up the resolution of my headset, and I think that'll help. Yeah, it's been an experience. It's been really an experience. I think I can safely say, much like skating is part of my life, and I go out and I skate, and sometimes I don't skate for a week or a month, but usually in the winter because it's foul at the moment, but skating is part of who I am. I think VR chat or anything that replaces VR chat is now a permanent part of my life, and that's interesting, like, because there's a threshold, like, it's like, oh, I'm into this, I'm a thing of this, I'm going to get bored of this kind of thing. Like, that's the cycle that you go through with a lot of things. And then only a handful of things, a small percentage of things, transition into lifetime hobbies. Like, a lot of people have played a round of golf, but once you own golf clubs and you have a golf membership and it's just part of who you are, it's a hobby. It's a lifestyle hobby. And I mean, I always knew VR. I mean, I'm deep into VR. I love VR. But specifically social VR and VR chat. And I mean, I've been trying to build the social VR future for so long now. One of the reasons I joined Sony. It's one of the reasons I joined Dreams. I really want the metaverse as a concept to exist. And the metaverse is not just about people hanging out in public spaces and private spaces and being social. It's also about creation. and it's about people creating the space. My preference, my far preference would be for this to be a Blender Foundation situation or an open source situation, and anything I can do to move it into that would be fantastic. If someone said to me tomorrow that there was a Blender style group pushing the metaverse that, I believed had traction, or I believed had the potential to have traction, I would be there tomorrow, even if it meant significant lifestyle reductions to contribute and be part of that. In the near term, though, I think private companies are probably going to do the push, and that's kind of where I've been. I had, in all honesty, 4 years ago, when I first investigated VR chat, had dismissed VR chat, and ironically, one of the things they did, which made me dismiss them even further, was when they added a desktop mode, and when they went onto Steam, and they made themselves a meme with Ugandan knuckles and stuff, and that was a complete foolish thought of mine, because really what that was their perfect strategy for growth, because by enabling non-VR users into their metaverse, they were able to get a lot of people to convert to VR. They were able to get a lot of traction they otherwise wouldn't have got. And their creation tools have significantly matured. Now in SDK 3, they're interesting. It's a shame that the creation tools aren't VR based. You cannot go into a world and build it. I think I've got to be careful what I say here. When you compare it to the experience of building a world in Dreams, where you can, in Dreams, build the thing and then play the thing, I think there's a significant difference there. The thing that VR chat has going for it, which Dreams will never have going for it, is it's a Wild West. And I think for VR chat to be, or for the metaverse to be successful, you need the Wild West. I think, Rec Room has had a great deal of success, but Rec Room at its core is still a fairly controlled space, and I think that's why Rec Room is Rec Room. Whereas when you look at more uncontrolled spaces, that's where you see humanity. That's where you see, and I mean, VR chat, I think, did the right thing by building really robust player tools to enable things like blocking and muting and things like that. But it also means that they've had to deal with things like toxic memes. They've had to deal with things like ERP and people using not safe for work avatars in front of underage kids and public spaces and stuff, which is a nightmare, but largely not a problem. Like, these things are fringe. Humans are generally pretty awesome. Here's the thing. If you want to know if a space is socially, or a tool or a thing is socially significant, do you have the gays? Do you have the freaks and the weirdos? Do you have the minorities? That is a true litmus test for cultural relevance. If the thing you're building has the potential. Pretty much every platform that has been popular and grown over time is that. The exception, one of the main exceptions to that, is Facebook. And Facebook grew out of the exclusivity of wealth. One of the rare exceptions to that. But I mean, it kind of, because it had colleges and it started in young spaces. Yeah. it kind of still got some of the youth vibe and the minority vibe. But yeah, it's fascinating to me. It's absolutely fascinating, and I could talk for hours on it. But I do need to get into work, so let's go through this. Are there actually a lot of people joining VR chat on Flat? I'd say there's a lot of people trying VR chat on Flat. If you were to divide it into hours played, I think desktop is probably less than half to a minority. If you were to do it by number of users, I'd say the bulk of users are desktop. The desktop users tend to pop on, find out if it's for them, and go off or whatever. Also, if you're hanging around in public worlds, that is really not what most of VR chat is. Public worlds tend to have a lot of new users. They tend to have a lot of desktop. They tend to have a lot of memers and trolls because they're public worlds. The vast majority of VR chat happens in private or friend worlds. Friend worlds being the most common. Friend and friend plus worlds being the most common. Though I still go into public worlds just to meet people, just to explore spaces. It's the same reason, you go to a club or whatever and stuff. It's being social with strangers is a big part of things. I do know some players who, once they're past that first introduction phase, never go into public worlds. I know some players who just refuse to go into public worlds. You can immediately tell when you're interacting with someone from a flat world for, well, A, they're very stiff and they move different, but B, it's very hard to understand VR chat when you're in a flat world, when you're in desktop, because you don't have the context. It just doesn't work. Yeah. So yeah, no, fortunately, yeah, like I'm extremely excited to see the development of it. It's going to be a thing we talk about more. No comment. For those of I will leave you all with so when I joined Sony, not long after I joined Sony, Shu came to me and said, it started off with Richard coming to me and saying Shu wants to know, but later talked to Shu. She wants to know, what does social communication look like in VR? And I went apart on this huge project to put together this thing, and I did a whole bunch of pitches and decks and R&D and blah 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 blah. Can't talk about because that's all NDA. But one of the things that came out of it is my department, my team, was given the job of building a thing. And I know that this GDC talk that Ellie gave, based on the work that the team did, changed many of the early social VR projects. Now, bear in mind, this is February 2017 at GDC. So this is... VR chat's not even been live for a year at this point. Altspace had started. With Sansar VR had started. But I know multiple projects changed their trajectory as a result of this talk, and it is considered one of the more influential social VR talks. So I'm glad that my work at least made a difference. But I'm going to leave you all with this YouTube link, because that is the best way I can express to Alka's question. Okay. Take care, everyone. I'll see you when I see you. Give that a watch if you want to see some of the early work I did about 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, the work started about 6 years ago. But yeah, like literally when I joined Sony in 2014, the first thing I started on was that. But take care, everyone. See you when I see you. And thanks again for dropping by.
Rock it like it's so